everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we have another video to react to for you guys, and this is from Aleczandxr. This one talking about GYRO. Now before we move forward, I just have to say, considering the topic of the video, just from the title, this video will contain spoilers for the Hunter x Hunter manga. If you have not kept up with the manga, just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers considering, again, the topic of it. So with that being said, moving forward, I'm just going to assume that you either have read the manga or you don't care about spoilers, okay? Okay, so with that out of the way, I just saw that Aleczandxr has uploaded this video, and I knew immediately I wanted to react to it, because to me, GYRO is one of the things that I'm really looking forward to seeing what Togashi does with him when the manga comes back. Ever since he hinted that Gon will meet GYRO in the future. Again, I cannot wait to see what happens there. If nothing happens, I'm going to be severely disappointed. Togashi cannot set that up and not do anything with it. So let's go ahead, full screen this. And
before getting into the video, I'd just like to thank Surfshark for sponsoring it. Surfshark is a reliable VPN service that can provide privacy for all of your sensitive information, easily mask your real location, and more. And personally, Surfshark's ability to change your virtual location has helped me to access content that I otherwise wouldn't be able to whilst making videos similar to this one. By unblocking blocked websites and bypassing geo-restrictions, Surfshark frees up your internet, meaning you can access television, film, and other types of media regardless of where you are. And in addition to that, Surfshark is one of the few VPNs that offer one account that can be used on
I've always wanted to try Surfshark.
You can
and
use
hey, Surfshark, if you ever want to sponsor me,
to get 83%
just let me know.
off your purchase, as well as an extra 3 months for free. A link with access to all of this will be provided in the description below. Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk to give it a go and see if the service is for you. Thanks very much again to Surfshark, and on with the video.
See right there, spoilers for the manga.
In a series that definitely doesn't shy away from the occasional mysterious badass shrouded in an aura of mystique, GYRO has to be the most enigmatic figure in Hunter x Hunter. And of course, a big part of that is due to the comparative lack of screen time he has, but it also seems to be baked into the nature of his design. There is very little time spent on him, but the bits we do get are pretty substantial, painting a picture and keying us into what he represents and where the story may take him, assuming it ever continues. But even as things stand, we can glean quite a bit from what we've gotten that informs us of some themes associated with parts of the Chimera Ant arc, the Election arc, the York New City arc, and the current arc in the manga, which I won't be spoiling here. And the elements surrounding this man seem to be focused on a vitriolic, complete hate for humanity, one that is very unlikely to waver as the Chimera Ant's opposition did. There is no better way to sum up GYRO's childhood than to describe it as a form of hell on Earth. He grew up in a construction camp, forced into hard labor before he was even able to do basic tasks. He lived in a small, modest shack with his drunk of a father, who often took to abusing GYRO for the slightest things that would set him off. After a long and hard day's work, especially for a young child, GYRO would come home to his inebriated excuse for a caretaker and force himself to sit still for the rest of the night until the next day's work, unable to go outside and paralyzed with fear at the idea of giving his father the tiniest excuse to beat him. It was a terrifying and disgusting existence, but having known nothing else, GYRO was still able to find some small bit of fulfillment and value in it. And ironically enough, that stemmed from the person who made this life a living hell in the first place. Despite everything, he still felt pride in the fact that his father had not thrown him out and believed that he cared for him when he was gravely ill as a young child, and as a result, this was his tether. His father also provided him with one bit of wisdom that he ensured GYRO would always adhere to: don't make trouble for others. And all of this was enough for GYRO to idolize the man, grasping for the tiniest bits of straw to cling on to the idea that he had a purpose in this world, that he mattered. However, this all came crashing down when he was confronted with the brutal truth by a youth that he had gotten into a fight with. The truth that his father hadn't thrown him out because he brought in money, and that he was actually cared for by a neighbor when he was ill. And this all compounded when, in the midst of his beating, he saw the man looking down and ultimately turning away with vague disinterest, clearly not bothered about whether his son lived or died. In realizing the reality of his insignificance, GYRO snapped and bashed his father's head in with a hammer. He then left and formed the NGL, slowly building up a nation, providing a waypoint for the lost, and gaining influence with the eventual goal in mind of destroying life for the entire world. He was eaten by a chimera ant during their takeover of the NGL, and he was reborn. But his malice, conviction, and pride as a king were so strong that he maintained his sense of self after the transformation and simply set off towards Meteor City to restart his plans with that same goal in mind. Apart from GYRO, no ant had ever been able to completely and immediately maintain their sense of self after being reincarnated, and none of them had been able to ignore the Queen's orders right away. Such is the strength of his resolve and hatred for humanity. And with him now having the power of a chimera ant and the access to Nen, as well as Togashi having explicitly said that he and Gon will cross paths one day, it all sets up GYRO as a fascinating and supremely powerful antagonist with tons of potential for the future direction of the story, again, assuming it continues. As a result, lots of fans tend to talk about how beautifully GYRO has been set up as a future villain due to his motives, potential power, ideals, and the various ways in which he contrasts Gon. While he was present in Dolly City during Gon and Killua's mini-training arc, he never came face to face with our protagonist. But he will someday, and the promise in that is huge. There are, of course, the obvious parallels with both characters having been left behind by their fathers, albeit in very different circumstances, of course, and having reacted to that in opposing ways. And GYRO's hatred and sheer desire to destroy all of humanity draws a parallel with Gon's attitude when the latter found out that Pito couldn't heal Kite, before he was ultimately saved. Assuming that Gon learns and grows from this experience, they could be nice foils for each other in that way.
I do still
with
believe
Gon
he will.
Down the line,
This is,
having
again,
potentially grown and matured after delving into...
this is again one of the reasons why I'm really excited for the manga to come back, because I'm looking forward to see what happens to Gon after what happened to him, like how much he's grown, you know, from his experiences.
And resurfacing from the abyss, and GYRO having been submerged the entire time and wielding and hate.
Excuse me.
It provides a hell of a contrast, and it could lead to some wonderful storytelling if explored in that way. But as on board as I am with all of that, I also think there's a lot to this man and what he represents from where we stand in the story right now. And a big part of that is rooted in the fact that the key thing that turned him to hating humanity was not the abuse he received, the terrible living conditions, or the fear he felt at the hands of his father. The straw that broke the camel's back was abandonment, after realizing that his father simply couldn't care less about him. And this draws a parallel with some other characters that we know and maybe love, with the Phantom Troop having been formed due to a mutual sense of dehumanization, desolation, and a loss of identity, having hailed from Meteor City and, as a result, having no place to call home. But while they channeled everything into their code and bonds and deeds, GYRO built an empire with the goal of sheer domination and rage against the world that crushed him. However, I don't think that this is solely the result of hatred. To explain what I mean, we can refer back to the fact that GYRO does not consider himself to be human, which interestingly enough draws another parallel with Crollo, who seems to feel the same way. With no roots or identity of any worth, this lack of connection to humanity seems to allow him to detach himself emotionally and psychologically to allow him to commit whatever heinous deeds he wants and enact his will without remorse. And the reason behind this detachment seems to be up for interpretation, but I view it as three-part. Firstly, after learning of his father's true nature, he came to recontextualize the words he said to him as "don't cause trouble for humans," in order to not cause trouble for his father, with the veiled implication here being that he himself is not human. Second, his suffering and experiences were so intense that it put him in a different psychological plane to other humans, warping his mind and simply making him feel alien to others. And the last reason relates to his relationship with that phrase.
人に迷惑をかけるな。無口な父親が唯一彼に事あるごとに説いた教えだった。ジャイロは幼さゆえの失敗を重ねながらもこの教えを大切に守ろうとした。
This was the primary tenet of his life, but it's important to understand why. Since his father never provided him with anything, this was the one true gift he received from him that he could interpret as valuable. He cherished these words because they were the only acknowledgement his father made of him up until that point that wasn't tainted with hate, and so he became a young boy with this idea at his core. He embodied the phrase, "Don't make trouble for anyone," to the best of his abilities because it was representative of the only connection he had with his father, and as such, it was what made him feel, just a little bit, like a human being capable of forging bonds, no matter how toxic and harrowing those bonds were. But soon he realizes the reality of his situation, that his father never cared for him at all, that they never had a bond, and that those words were not caring life advice, but rather the result of his father just wanting Gyro to not cause trouble for others so that he wouldn't be inconvenienced himself. And this reversed everything about his life. He was taught here that everything he had felt and thought was real was a lie, and so he responded accordingly. Gyro not only cast off everything he personified, but because of how betrayed he felt, he diametrically opposed what he once was. From craving connection to not desiring it at all. From fearful and scared to becoming the one to be feared. From wanting to build something with his dad to wanting to destroy everything. From idolizing that father to spitting on his corpse. From believing it was essential for him to not cause trouble for others and viewing it as a faint window into a potential future of prosperous humanity, to believing himself to not be a human at all and deciding to instead cause as much trouble as he could for others as a result. His resentment and rage towards humanity isn't just the result of him lashing out after his terrible childhood. It's something of a logical progression for him after learning that his former way of life was the epitome of a falsehood. So he did a complete 180 in response. And yet, through letting go of his humanity, along with being highly intelligent, pragmatic, and able to build all of what he gained from nothing, Gyro became someone with a magnetic charisma clearly capable of connecting with people, ironically through his initial decision to forego connection. Welfin even states that they became quick friends and would often jokingly compare whose life was worse, and all in all, Gyro is portrayed as something of a savior for a select few, gathering these people together and helping them find a purpose, again in a way similar to the Spider. He had comrades who he confided in and shared good memories with, whom he clearly cared for and wished well. And while this doesn't at all overpower the crux of his character being based in deep darkness, I think it's still very significant.
おめえも死ぬまで死ぬなよ。
なんだそりゃ。
ジャイロの挨拶だ。俺の一番好きな言葉さ。
So while he fuels himself with this abhorrence for humanity and this methodical response to his experiences, I think it's clear that Gyro isn't 100% absolute evil incarnate with no gray to him whatsoever, which is what you'd expect from Hunter x Hunter. He initially tossed everything about that side of him aside and gave up on any meaning in life. But as we indirectly learn from tiny pieces of information from others, since then he has become the type of person that others would dedicate their hearts to. A ray of light for the forlorn and lost, a person to banter with, and a friend to kindred spirits. And while I doubt that that will lead to any complete change of heart similar to Meruem down the line, that tiny crack giving way to the tortured yet idealistic young boy he once was may be the catalyst to some beautifully nuanced character writing. So what does all of this really mean thematically? Well, GYRO's story is currently just past the introductory phase, so we can't really say much about him with complete confidence. But what I get from all of this is an integration of many ideas from many arcs. Through his story, we see the corrupt nature of the world as is portrayed through York New, Chimera Ant, and Election, a great examination of how our environment can be key in dictating where we end up, an idea that is explored constantly throughout the story, and we also see these little hints to a tiny amount of light hidden underneath all of the loathing, akin to Chimera Ant. As strange as it is to admit, a small part of me feels happy for the young boy inside GYRO that was able to finally find others to bond with. But that is dwarfed by his intent, by what he has done, and what he plans to do once more. Paradoxically, in his quest to destroy all, he has become someone similar to those at the top that led to the terrible life he had as a child. We don't know the specifics of the effects of his D2 plan, but if he is to continue, he will no doubt lead to many innocent lives being taken or damaged beyond repair, to perpetuating a cycle for others similar to his early childhood. And I wonder if that makes him hesitate, even just a little bit.
あいつとはよく不幸自慢したな。泣いた日を笑って話し合えるのはあいつだけだった。あいつも俺も空っぽで、だから何も隠さずに済んだ。何してんだろう、あいつ。もう一度会いてえな。
I think the story very much establishes that GYRO will not stop at anything in this rampage towards annihilation. But at the same time, I think there's enough to hint that he is very much still a part of the human race that he despises, with all of the positives and negatives that come with that. And maybe that could have some sort of impact on him going forward, especially if he has a matured Gon to help exemplify this duality. Though at this point, everything is up in the air. Much of this is very interpretive and not extremely solid, extrapolating quite a bit from small pieces of information, so of course I wouldn't suggest taking my word for this at all. But what is absolutely certain is that GYRO is a fascinating figure well worthy of the discussion he spawns, lending hope and a hand of guidance through carnage for his followers and carrying out his motives with an unflinching determination. GYRO is the spearhead of an uprising meant to counter this broken world in the only way he feels is appropriate. And regardless of whether we see his story reach its conclusion, I think there is quite a bit to take from his journey so far. Many thanks for watching.
Okay, so that was it. I think that's the video. Okay, so that was the video on GYRO, and like I said, dude, Togashi for me is like, dude, if you want just an example of just how good of a writer he is, GYRO is a perfect example. This is a character that has barely any screen time, and I guarantee you he's still much more well written than I guarantee you most of the characters you've seen in a lot of shonen anime. I can guarantee you that. And this is one of the reasons why I am waiting. I will continue to wait for the manga to come back, because I really want to see what happens with the story and what happens when him and Gon meet. Especially, like he said, if he were to meet a more mature Gon, someone who's learned from his experience, someone who now learned that, the world isn't so black and white, that the world is actually different shades of gray. And while, there are still some things that are black and white, but most of it is just like things are not that simple. And he had to learn that the hard way, and he you know, because he was surrounded by people who already knew that. Even Killua from such a young age, I guess you could say is part of the reasons why he's such a bit of a tragic character, is that he, from such a young age, learned just the harsh reality of the world and the kind of people that are in it. And I feel like I'm hoping that now, after what happened to him, he'll learn. And I honestly can't wait for him and Killua to meet up again and to, you know, I'm hoping to also see Killua's reaction to see how Gon's changed from what happened to him. Now, obviously, I'm not hoping he changes a lot. I'm still hoping that he'll, at his core, still be the same Gon that we knew and that we all know and love. But you can also tell that he's changed, he's grown, he's mature, he's learned. And to see how Killua would, I don't know if Killua will be there when him and Gyro meet. Although personally, I feel like that's kind of I feel like that probably should be a Gon exclusive story. Like, I don't think he should be with Killua when he meets Gyro. I feel like that's something that Gon should handle alone. Like, he shouldn't have someone there, you know, someone like Killua there to help guide him. I feel like it'll be a great test to show us how much he's matured to deal with someone who's, in a way, like he said, a lot similar to Gon, both having parents who, I mean, I don't want to call Jing a parent who doesn't really care. I feel like he cares a bit. He just isn't interested in being a father. And I still feel like Jing is way, way, way better than fucking Gyro's piece of shit dad. Seriously, fuck that guy. And it's just, it'll be really interesting to see what happens when they meet. And, you know, maybe, who knows, maybe Gyro will try to, you know, try to appeal to Gon, thinking that, you know, I mean, I don't know how much Gyro knows about Gon's home life. I don't think he knows that much. But just in case, if he does, and imagine if Gyro, like, imagine if he saw what Gon did to Pito. Just imagine that, and he knows, like, the kind of power this kid has. Imagine if he tries to bring him over to his side to help him do what he did, and he tries to appeal to that part of Gon, that dark part of Gon that we saw in the Chimera Ant arc. And his reaction to how he's taken what happened to him and he's learned from it and he's chosen to move on from what happened. And instead of Gyro, who's still sort of motivated by what happened to him in the past and his fucking piece of shit dad. But anyway, guys, those are just my thoughts, guys. Let me know your thoughts as always in the comment section down below. This was a great video from Aleczandxr, and yes, we have more videos from him that we are going to react to. And remember, if you have your own video that you want me to react to, just let me know about it in the comment section down below, and I will get to them when I get to them. So with that being said, thank you so much again. I highly appreciate your support, whether it's liking the videos, sharing the videos, or subscribing, or clicking. And also, yes, remember to click on the bell icon, because that will notify you whenever I post a new video or whenever I go live. With that being said, remember to stay safe and take care of yourselves. Bye for now.